Alright guys, welcome back to Underground Science, and in this video we'll be talking about glycolysis. Alright, now glycolysis is the first step in cellular respiration, okay? And remember, we need oxygen for our cells to survive, and we need glucose. Our cells need glucose to produce energy, okay? And glycolysis, we're going to start out by breaking the sugar, all right, to send that broken sugar into two 3-carbon structures, which we'll see what they are at the end of this, at the end of the next video, because glycolysis is such a long process that I don't want to talk about it at once, or else you guys are probably going to fall asleep. So it's going to be split into 2 videos, okay? So what glycolysis is, we pretty much break sugar so we can convert it into energy. Okay, we do make ATP, right? We do make some ATP in glycolysis, right? But most of the huge amount of ATP is actually made in the electron transport chain, which is another step in cellular respiration, which we'll be covering in a future video. Okay, and one thing to say before we move on and how glycolysis works is that glycolysis can occur in both anaerobic conditions and aerobic conditions. So in conditions without or with oxygen. All right, so let's go ahead and get started talking about glycolysis. All right, so this looks like a lot, but it's actually pretty much just one step to another step to another step. That's why it's not really, it's kind of, you could say it's kind of boring, because this is real life. The only thing that makes it fun is that we know that this is what's happening in our body all day, but talking about it, it's pretty much like, oh, this molecule gets converted to this molecule, how, because of this enzyme, and you just go on and on and on until you fully break down glucose into 2 3-carbon structures, which is the goal of glycolysis. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started quick. Okay, so glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm, right? Not in the mitochondria. Okay, so we start off with glucose, right? So we ate our delicious donut, right? We broke it down in our stomach and small intestine into glucose, which are the monomers for carbohydrates, and then the glucose is in the blood and it comes into a cell, right, through a glut transporter. Okay, so now we have glucose, and our first step would be to use this enzyme right here called hexokinase. All right, and hexokinase is going to be the enzyme that breaks down glucose to glucose 6-phosphate. All right, so we go from glucose to glucose 6-phosphate. Okay, that's our first step. And in addition to that, we can see here that we also use energy in this step, okay? Right here, we break down ATP into adenosine diphosphate and a phosphate group. And then I drew a line right here showing that then this phosphate group is then attached to the 6-carbon structure in our next molecule, right here. All right, so that phosphate group just doesn't appear magically from somewhere, all right? It's because of this ATP being broken down from glucose to glucose 6-phosphate. And what's this next molecule? Well, I just said it, right? Glucose 6-phosphate is our next molecule, which is right here, okay? And so again, we're moving on. See, you can already see that's just, all right, one molecule to another molecule, then moving on, one molecule to another molecule. It's just conversion after conversion after conversion. Okay, so from glucose 6-phosphate, we use phosphohexose isomerase, or phosphoglucose isomerase, which I show right here, is an enzyme to convert glucose 6-phosphate into fructose 6-phosphate. All right, and you can see it as phosphoglucose isomerase also, right? Because right here, the ose part, you can recognize as sugar, right? Like lactose or fructose or glucose. The ose part means the sugar, and the hex part in phosphohexose isomerase means 6. Right, so the hex part means 6. And if you recall, glucose is a 6-carbon sugar. That's why you can also see this enzyme named phosphoglucose isomerase. All right, so glucose 6-phosphate then gets converted to fructose 6-phosphate because of phosphohexose isomerase. All right, and then again, moving on, from fructose 6-phosphate, we convert into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Now here, the same concept applies here, and ATP is used, energy is used, and it's broken down into an ADP, right, adenosine diphosphate, and a lone phosphate, and then that phosphate is put on the 1 carbon, which is right here. So this phosphate, so let me actually do this in a different color. All right, this phosphate right here goes over here and attaches on the 1 carbon of fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. All right, so now we're finally at fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, but how do we get there, right? So phosphofructo-kinase type 1 converted fructose 6-phosphate into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Okay, so right now you can just tell, like, holy crap, this looks like a lot, but it's actually not. It's just a bunch of things being converted to one another with a bunch of enzymes and a bunch of ATP being used, right? Energy being used and breaking down to many phosphates, and then that phosphate's attaching. All right, so it might seem like a lot, but it's not, okay? Once you get go through this over and over, you'll get it. All right, so right now we're at fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. So let's just chill out for a little bit, right? And go to the side and write down just the structures that were converted to, okay? So remember, we started as glucose, right? Oh yeah, this white space, just a clean space, looks much better. Right, so glucose, then to glucose 6-phosphate, right, then to glucose 6-phosphate. All right, so this is pretty much a short review session before we move on. All right, so glucose to glucose 6-phosphate, and then if you remember, it's actually, you can remember this pretty easily, just replace glucose with fructose. So then we're going to have fructose 6-phosphate, right, and then we just ended off right here by saying that fructose 6-phosphate gets converted into fructose 1. All right, let me just fix this U. Fructose 1,6, not phosphate, but bisphosphate, all right, because the phosphates are on the 1 and the 6 carbon. It's not next to each other. So bisphosphate. And that's it. That's all that crowdness that we saw here is this, all right, that we just wrote here. And again, let's review the enzymes that were involved. So remember, glucose to glucose 6-phosphate, we said what, right? If you can recall, if you can't, then, you can see it right here, right? So we have hexokinase, all right? So hexokinase is like, yo, glucose, right? I'm trying to break you down into glucose 6-phosphate, right? We need you for energy. So he starts it, all right? He's like, all right, I'm going to break you down to glucose 6-phosphate. And then glucose 6-phosphate is just waiting there. It's like, I need to get broken down, right? I need to get converted to fructose 6-phosphate. Is there anyone there to help me, right? And then we see phosphohexosisomerase. He's like, yeah, I got you, right? So we have phosphohexosisomerase. Actually, I should put a space in between there because it's not all one word. Right, phosphohexosisomerase. He's like, all right, I'll convert you into fructose 6-phosphate, right? And then fructose 6-phosphate is like, okay, again, I need someone, right, to convert me into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Is anyone there? And then phosphofructo-kinase type 1 is like, yep, I'm here, right? Phosphofructo-kinase. Pretty long name, type 1, converts fructose 6-phosphate into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. All right, now, one thing, now let's go over where ATP is being broken down. Okay, where is energy being used? So here, we said ATP was being broken down, right, into what? ADP and a phosphate. And one other place we said that ATP was being used, which was right here. ATP was being broken down into ADP and a phosphate group. All right, so that's pretty much it, right? So now let's go back to the crowded section, right? Back to all the things, the busy things that were happening. And let's continue from fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. All right, again, I want to split these videos because I bet you're probably already bored, right? So splitting these videos will help you not fall asleep. Right, that's the goal here. We need you to understand this, because this is happening like every second in your body, right? Because you eat all those carbs and sugar. Well, how are you still having energy, right? Because of cellular respiration, and glycolysis is the first step, right? So remember, we're here right now, okay? So let me just draw a huge red arrow. We're here. Fructose 1,6 bisphosphate. Okay. Now, aldolase comes in, right? This is the big enzyme. He comes in, he splits the crap out of fructose 1,6 bisphosphate, all right, into, okay, why is this phosphate like that? Into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, which I show right here, and into dihydroxyacetone phosphate. All right. So this, till now, I feel like this is a good spot to leave off and continue in our next video, because I feel like we've got this down, right? So again, let's go back to the non-crowded section and see what we have so far. All right, so we have glucose to glucose 6-phosphate with the help of hexokinase, and we have an energy molecule being used, right, ATP. Then we have glucose 6-phosphate to fructose 6-phosphate with the help of phosphohexosaisomerase, or also we said you can see in other textbooks and websites as phosphoglucose isomerase, right? Because hex means what? 6, and then os means there's a sugar. So 6-carbon sugar is the same thing as glucose, so phosphoglucose isomerase or phosphohexosaisomerase. Converts glucose 6-phosphate into fructose 6-phosphate, and then fructose 6-phosphate is converted into fructose 1,6 bisphosphate with an ATP being used and with the help of phosphofructo-kinase type 1. And another thing to mention is that between glucose and glucose 6-phosphate, magnesium is an important structure or not a structure. Magnesium is an important, you could say, mineral, right, or nutrient that's being used to convert glucose to glucose 6-phosphate. Okay, so magnesium is being used, so Mg2+ is being used in here. So anytime you see an ATP being used, all right, magnesium is also being used to help convert to glucose 6-phosphate. And same thing here, guys. Magnesium is being used also to help convert fructose 6-phosphate into fructose 1,6 bisphosphate. So you can see magnesium is important in breaking down sugar for energy. All right, and I feel like that's a good leaving point. And in our next video, we'll continue off from the splitting of fructose 1,6 bisphosphate via aldolase into dihydroxyacetone phosphate and, scroll to the right, and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. All right, so hopefully you guys continue in the next video and we can see how glycolysis ends and what happens. All right, see you guys in the next video.